Hello, it's Gimbo, your second favorite
wizard.
This is it. This is the last stand. All your life choices have led you to this moment. Today, we take on the last episode of the Rings of Power Season 2. If we survive today, does this series just go away forever? Nobody knows. The big bold man will decide. We start with a view of a dark tunnel. Disa just murdered a dwarf, but she will never admit it.
It's the ring!
We get to see a kiss. Someone was pissed in the comments that I skipped over the kiss between Galadriel and Elrond. Here is Durin and Disa for your viewing pleasure. Navi is so real for this. Anyway, Durin goes to beat his dad with an axe, but he turns out to be too much of a pussy.
You're strong enough to wield an axe, but are you strong enough to use it against your father?
No, father.
Coincidentally, King Durin was one strike away from breaking the wall, of course. So the father and son enter and they find a ton of mithril ore.
To see our mountain the way I do, you have to wear a ring, my son.
But you just mauled all the miners. Shut up. Life comes at the king fast and a Balrog emerges from the mine. After some horrible slow motion, King Durin commits suicide by Balrog. Funny detail actually, he pops like a bubblegum balloon. Intro sequence now and we move to the cyan-tinted realm of Rhûn. I hoped we're through with this botched color correction after episode 1, but clearly not. Once again, I'm fixing this or you would be watching a black screen otherwise. I earned your subscription, didn't I? We see the stranger exploring a deserted Stour village. The dark wizard emerges, but he plays friendly and kills one of his goons. He doesn't play friendly very long though, and he destroys the village. The story takes us to Númenor, which was missing from the previous episode, which is why episode 7 was probably the best so far in the series. Either way, I will not put you through Númenor arc, because I respect your time and your eyes. Therefore, here's a fun fact about marine life. Did you know that fish can't chew their food because they would choke and die? They just swallow it whole. Now you know. We return to the besieged Eregion, where the orcs have broken through the defenses. Galadriel is here, with plot armor as thick as the smoke above the mountains. She leads some civilians out of the city through a secret passage, but the orcs are already waiting there. Unfazed, Galadriel makes a weird offer.
Set them free, and I will go willingly.
Back in Celebrimbor's forge, the old elf is being tortured by Sauron. Remember, he tried to have Sauron arrested, but this went very wrong. Sauron, presenting as Anatar, still tries to risk Celebrimbor up and play friendly, even though he's literally pulling at the arrows that are embedded in the elf's body. On his deathbed, Celebrimbor proves to be quite the verbal opponent to Sauron, and he manages to weaponize his insecurities.
Shadow of Morgoth!
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
In the end, Celebrimbor says the thing and dies.
Lord of the Rings.
Boy, I usually only get this excited when they say the title of a movie in the movie.
For some reason, the story takes us back to Theo and Isildur. We haven't seen these guys for like a few weeks now. These two yap for a few minutes. I'm amazed at how we have time for this in the final episode. Anyway, the Númenorans have arrived, but we are not technically in Númenor, so I will let this one slide. The horse gets a shout out, I like that.
And everyone said there were no survivors left.
There wouldn't be, if not for Beric.
Should I have them slaughter the horse? These people do look hungry.
Oh, that's not very nice now, is it? Either way, the Eagles Guy men are here, and they will be building a base and oppressing the locals. We don't care though, so we go to Galadriel and the Dar, who took her ring in battle and had a glow-up. Temporary glow-up. This orc is brought back from the city and plays wounded, only to kill Adar a few seconds later. Too bad. Adar really seemed to care for them. Sauron comes out of nowhere to oversee the deed, and he faces off with Galadriel. They briefly fight and Sauron falls down just a little bit. Galadriel is ready to strike the death blow, but suddenly, Sauron appears as Halbrand. This lasts for a brief moment, at which point Sauron turns into Galadriel. Let's freeze the frame for a second here. I like this visual metaphor. It's a perfect depiction of Morfydd Clark fighting herself to show some good acting for this whole season.
What help could you possibly provide, Orc?
The shenanigans last for a bit longer. Now Galadriel is fighting Celebrimbor, the Nanatar makes a return. The fight enters a phase where they mostly strike rocks and not each other. Eventually, Sauron prevails and Galadriel gets stabbed with the spiky crown. Sauron now has the 9 rings. He also wanted Galadriel's own ring, but then this happens.
Heal yourself.
Okay. Back in Eregion now, the elves are captured and the orcs are doing what orcs do. We hear a horn and some of the orcs drop dead. The dwarves have launched a counterattack. Elrond, Gil-galad and Arondir find Galadriel in the forest. She is dying, but not in the safe elf way.
These are not merely wounds of the body. Her very immortal spirit is being drawn into the Shadow Realm.
The story makes sure to jump to the least important arc. What are we even doing here? I get it. A big trope in the Lord of the Rings specifically was being able to see the story through the eyes of a very ordinary creature. But here, the harfoots are as far as it can get from the main action, and they're not even interesting or likable. Show. Listen to me. Can we please stop wasting the precious time in the season finale for whatever this is?
Don't be a stranger now.
Now for the icing on the cake.
Some things lost are lost forever.
The summary monologue, which is overlaid with a montage of how each of the storylines wrap up in this season, is presented to you by Poppy motherfucking Proudfellow, trying to wrap this whole season into this tiny domestic perspective like nothing happened, and as if the Harfoots played some major role. I'm sorry, as if the Harfoots played any role, that they weren't on screen for like 10 minutes total.
Nice job, team.
Also, the stores randomly start addressing the stranger as Grand Elf.
Thank you kindly, Grand Elf.
Goodbye, Grand Elf.
The writers just remembered about this, that we need to squeeze it at the very end of the season. You get it? Grand Elf, Gandalf. They must have felt very smart coming up with this one. We jump to Tom Bombadil. Another shout out to the props department for doing a good job. I thought after making the Grand Elf thing so obvious they would just leave it, but no. The creators just have to keep rubbing this in our face.
Gandalf.
Next up, Galadriel wakes up in the forest with Gil-galad staring at her.
Rest. We are safe here.
She is dressed in a perfectly clean gown. Clearly, someone had to change her when she was unconscious. As I'm trying to purge this thought from my mind, the elves do this for some reason. And that's it, the season finishes. After episode 7 was such a nice, coherent and action-packed entry in the series, the finale was such a mess. Let's not ignore the beautiful cinematography, the intricate props, and the fact that this show does look expensive, unlike The Acolyte. Still, the showrunners started way too many storylines and just felt that they have to follow up on each one. The end result is barely watchable. When you purge the boring arcs, the series proves itself to be surprisingly enjoyable, but with so many characters and open stories, this can hardly be fixed at this point. Let's look at the bright side of things though. We survived the whole season. We have at least 2 years to recharge now. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.